No.
Hold
All
on.
right. Well,
Okay.
that's fine. We're live, but
Okay.
you can keep. Yeah.
I'm gonna mute myself real quick. This is the Nerd Ledger. This is
Yeah.
Cage and Chair, and
Yeah.
now I'm gonna inhale a big bite of my cheesesteak. And don't worry, guys, I'm gonna mute myself because I treat you with respect and dignity, and none of you want to hear that over a mic. And then Cage can explain what we did together
Oh
as
yeah.
very platonic friends, for sure.
Totally. Yeah. We saw Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania last night. Um, Luckily, I was able to go to that because last week after we podcasted and I said I don't get sick, I got sick like the day after, and then I tested positive the day after that, and then I was dying. But then I recovered, and now I'm healed, and I was negative before I went out in public with my people. So, yeah, then we went out last night. We saw Quantumanias, and that's what we're going to talk about. And there's going to be lots of spoilers, so if you haven't watched the movie and you don't want to be spoiled, then you should leave and come back later, or listen to the podcast version when you're ready to be ready to hear the full conversation and the full context of everything.
I forgot to close my door. Oh my God, it's amateur hour. What is this?
Happens.
All right. Go on, Scruff.
So.
Go on, Scruff. Are you freaking kidding me? Go on. Go on. Good boy.
Yep. Well, yeah. So.
We're back. I'm back.
You're back. You made it.
I lived. So I guess we'll do first impressions. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you were leading into. Just totally hijacked the conversation, whatever conversation or piece you were building with the audience.
Okay. I wasn't building anything.
General impressions, though. I'll start off. I think it was actually, I kind of enjoyed it. Like, I think the intro was a little weak. I think also it suffered for some weak, like, just dialogue writing that wasn't very snappy. But aside from that, like, it was just really entertaining to watch. Like, the special effects, like, they were kind of subpar, but there was a lot of them. And two, like, they were weird. So that kind of, like, made up for it a little bit,
Yeah. The movie had an interesting aesthetic. It was kind of Star Warsy, but also kind of Guardians of the Galaxy ish.
Yeah.
And even bits of like what you could interpret as like Star Trek-y.
Yeah.
Like, had a lot of different science fiction elements, and it looked pretty cool. There are potential issues with this movie. Just kind of depending on how much anyone buys what the movie's trying to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
The whole idea, right, of the quantum realm and Kang being who he is in the quantum realm, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, seeing as how at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp, Ant-Man goes back to the quantum realm to gather particles to help Ghost. And he didn't experience any of this. He didn't even know there were people there. Right? And then, isn't the whole premise of Endgame that they go through the quantum realm to travel through time? But they say time and space don't exist in the quantum realm?
Yeah, I think you could... I can understand part of that. But also, like, part of me says you can just write it off really easy, whereas in, like, they were teleporting to a place in the quantum realm where there were no people. Or as in, like, the time travelers, and, like, they were in and out of the quantum realm, like, like, they would, since there's no space...
Ant-Man was there for a long time. Right?
Yeah,
because
for 5 years.
He got trapped in there,
Yeah.
But, the explanation the movie gives you, pretty much, I mean, it doesn't straight up say, oh, well, we've never been here before. It kind of just says, like, they're so deep in there.
Just to reiterate, too, he was only in there for like 10 or 15 minutes, right? That was the idea. Like, I know that
Sure.
isn't that what he said? Like, for him, that's when they went on the time travel idea.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a very specific, a long amount of time for him. And if it just dumped him in the middle of the quantum realm with, like, nothing around him, then I don't know. Like, it's his daughter picked his daughter's signal. They got, we'll do that when we review the plot. But, so I think there are ways you could work around it. But I also understand how those can be seen as plot holes. Well, I mean, even if you can cover them easy.
it's the whole thing about time travel that just in general makes very little sense whenever it exists.
Yeah, what's
Like,
my
cause
opinion of time travel? It's been well
yeah,
established.
because it's like if time and space don't exist in the quantum realm, or alternatively, maybe it just doesn't exist in this part of the quantum realm. Like it doesn't make a lot of sense that like you kind of just pop up in modern day, like no matter what. But like then it seemed like Kang was maybe saying he could just, well, I mean, he has a time machine, I guess. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh, like
This is the issue with like reality, time, space, war piece stuff is that it all gets really murky about what it is and isn't possible. And at the end of the day, what is and isn't possible is solely up to the discretion of the writer and the director.
sure.
That's just kind of how this stuff works when you're writing your own rules about space and time. Um, it's just a little wacky and zany. It really is. Like, you're right. It, like they're from up above. Like that's what they describe them as, and it doesn't make. And that explanation doesn't make any sense.
Well, the in universe or like the in movie explanation, I guess. Like it's not a direct explanation, but they do say like essentially it's a whole new universe, like it's a whole new galaxy. Like there's so many different parts of the quantum realm, like
Yeah.
that exist. Like, and obviously, if you think about our world, right? I mean, Earth is big enough, and then we also have the galaxy we live in, and then the universe beyond that, and
Mm.
then this is that on a like 1/1 millionth scale, right? Like it's like obviously there's entire worlds living beneath us, and
Yeah.
if they cover the entire surface of everything that everything else covers, then obviously that's a lot, and it's a lot bigger than what we have here,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, obviously like there are kind of like endless possibilities, and it makes sense. Like the way they did it is, well, they get sucked into the quantum realm, and they get sucked in specifically to where Kang is, obviously because MODOK got their signal,
Yeah.
right? And so that all makes sense. I guess what doesn't make sense is that like the only people there are just like they all are there in one place, I guess. Then
Yeah, because
like
how immense it would be. Like, the scale of the quantum universe is like would be 30, 40, hundreds, millions times bigger than our own universe because of like, again, it's like if it's on a micro scale and spread out, like you said, over the entire like everything,
yeah,
it's just as big as expensive, if not more. And that's like, again, where it comes down to just the writer and director's discretion when you're doing zany, wacky sci-fi things,
yeah,
which I'm not opposed to. Like, they do it all the time, and I think it worked well to this movie, where like, they're just kind of a wacky part of it.
right. I don't
Also,
know.
I think this one was a lot better than the Ant-Man and the Wasp, like by a lot. Like, definitely. I
I
think,
didn't mind Ant-Man and the Wasp, but I can understand that. Like, it's definitely what I would call like fresher. Like it looks refined, and it
yeah,
feels more refined, and like it's more aesthetically like where we've been and where we're going, as opposed to like you know the kind of more comedic zany version of Ant-Man, which even this version is still comedic and zany,
mm,
but I think like every movie, like it wasn't perfect, but it
yeah,
was it was still largely enjoyable. And
yeah.
if
I
you
don't
don't
regret seeing
overthink
it.
it like the way a lot of people do, including myself sometimes,
Yeah,
you know, like I said, like it comes down to how much you buy the in-universe explanations for things, or if you even care. It, but with things like this, is like if you don't buy the premise, you're already out. You're never gonna enjoy the movie anyway.
yeah.
So you have to already be bought in, or
Yeah, if you're one of those people sitting around talking, like, focusing over, well, this isn't scientifically accurate, or blah, 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 blah.
yeah,
Like, that's just very unfortunate. You probably should have signed out about 10 movies ago, to be honest with you. um, but aside from that, like, I just think it worked well. It was weird and crazy, like Star Warsy. There was that was there too. But like, just it was a really good sci-fi movie. I think is a really good way to describe it. Like, it feels like science fiction through and through, even more than a hero movie almost.
yeah, and they kind of get to, I mean they get to the quantum realm fairly quickly. Like they don't,
Yeah,
you know,
maybe we should. So maybe we should start out like just doing the movie play by play. You want to do that
yeah,
right now? best of
Sure.
our recollection.
Yeah.
It starts off with Scott, just
Yeah. Well,
Mr.
it starts
Lang.
off with like a
Oh yeah, the
kind of
intro.
like a pre-log. I don't know. Pretty much
Yeah,
like a quick scene where we see Michelle Pfeiffer's character, Janet,
Janet. Yeah,
like in the quantum realm years ago, and then some guy shows up who we all already know as Kang, but
yeah,
whatever. He shows up and he needs help, and then they kind of cut
yeah,
right, and then we go into modern day where Paul Rudd is doing his over voiceover work.
yep,
Talking about I'm Scott. I'm an Avenger. How did I get here? How I'm taking pictures with dogs. I'm being honored. People know me and whatever. And I wrote a book and I love my book and I have a daughter and I love her
yep.
and
Got a hot wife
yeah.
that does. We do crazy, super cool superhero things.
Yep. Hope Van Dyne is working hard to make the world a better place and whatever and his
He's
daughter is
just
an activist.
Yep, and he's just walking around,
Yep.
just doing his thing. In San Fran, by the way, stomping grounds, the hometown, the big SF, classic place.
Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you know what happens? Like they all go in for the family dinner. Oh, that's right. They bring so what happens is they go like eventually Hope gets arrested because she was at some protest and she
Not
told the
Hope.
cops.
Cassie.
Cassie gets arrested. That's right.
Yeah.
Because she was at some protest and she shrunk a cop car down using like PIM particles, which is kind of crazy, but
Yeah.
whatever. And then they're having a big discussion about personal responsibility, and everyone's being really mean to Scott.
Yeah.
Like,
Pretty much like it's just a roast fest at that point. They're just like, bro,
yeah,
you saved you maybe help save the universe and whatever. You're an Avenger, but what have you done lately, bitch? You ain't doing shit.
yeah.
All you're
They're
doing is
writing
writing
policy piece of
books.
shit. Yeah. So they just keep roasting on Scott the entire time. They go to the Pym Manor for a family dinner. First, really funny scene, where they have that like small size pizza and they use Pym particles to upsize it. I thought that was actually pretty funny.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie, saving money. And then they just go straight down to the basement after Scott learns that Cassie has been using has her own suit apparently and has been using Pym particles to do things, and they've been studying things in the quantum realm. This
Yeah.
causes and Janet and then Cassie says that I'm using like a ping, like a radar signal to map the quantum realm and stuff, like sending a signal into the quantum
Yeah.
realm. And then Janet's like, "Wait, you're sending a signal?" Then she just has a critical meltdown. I'm not gonna lie, this is one of the parts of the movie that didn't do it for me. Like her just not talking about Kang, just obvious, was so. It was so it was really weird. A really really weird way of communicating or lack of communication. I'd rather say.
Yeah.
So it turns out that apparently and they get traced.
The worst part too is not only do they introduce you in this scene before dinner to Hope being hey, you want to talk about the quantum realm yet? And she's just like, no.
Yeah.
And then it's and then Hank's like, hey, we're working on this cool stuff and whatever, and look at what Cassie's been working on. When Cassie's like, we don't even have to go to the quantum realm, we can just send signals and do cool stuff. And then Janet's like, are you kidding me? What the fuck? You guys can't do that.
Yeah, she breaks Cassie's machine, she really throws it on the ground.
Yeah, and then Hope's like, yo, we tried to talk to you about this for years and you don't want to say anything, so we're kind of doing our thing. And she's like, there's a reason. And then even then they get sucked into the quantum realm because obviously the signal got picked up. And even then they're there now, and they're like, yo, what's going on? She's like, we just gotta keep moving. We can't talk. I'm gonna explain things to you while we're walking, but I'm not gonna talk to you about the things you want to know about. I'm just gonna blabble about whatever else, even because we gotta keep going. I can't talk about this. Hey, we're gonna go meet up with Bill Murray soon, all right? So chill the fuck out.
Yeah, it was really stupid her not talking about what was going on.
Right. It's you're there now. You think you're gonna avoid it for much
I think
longer?
it would have been much more intimidating too if she would have been telling them over a fire or something like that, at the family manor. And then they get sucked in,
Yeah, I mean,
All this great.
and people like to talk about fan service. It's like we knew Kang was gonna show up because it's kind of announced and like stuff with Loki or
And he's in the
whatever.
he's in the poster. Like he's
Right.
literally in the poster.
Well, I mean, but like if before this movie came out, like there was like mention of him, like at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp, or whatever, when she gets rescued in that movie, if she said, "Hey, when I was down there, there's this guy, and like we have to make sure he can never get out," like, let's not fuck with this shit. Like, dude, the audience would have loved that show. We've been like, "Holy shit, dude, Kang's coming!" Like,
Yeah.
for sure. Like, but like instead, it's like we already knew he was gonna be in this movie and whatever, and it's like obviously we didn't know who was
I
gonna
think
happen.
Loki was like the big introduction to Kang. It was the most important introduction, like
And it
the idea.
still is because I think if people watch this movie and haven't seen Loki, they will
Mm.
fundamentally misunderstand what's happening.
Yeah, they don't know who that guy is, like, and they don't care. Like for us, it's a big deal when you look up and you see that guy because we saw him. Like, oh, that's the Master. And, like, there's millions of him running around the universe, and they're all fucking like insane.
Well, that's the biggest point of it, right? Like the idea that he
Yeah,
got exiled, right, by himself, essentially,
yeah,
and the understanding that like just because this Kang is gone doesn't mean anything. There are
yeah.
like infinite Kangs, and
Well, we'll get there when we get there. So they all get tossed in the quantum realm, and they got like these smart ants that were like building a little ant civilization in like the Pym family manor, and they get
yeah,
sucked into and they vanish off into the distance, never to be heard from again ever. Sex for those ants. And then this is our first time like also introduced like to the major like really cool effects I think they were treated to in this movie when they were moving through like the first fall. Things are getting bigger and smaller, and like there's like the weird cell stuff floating around. It was all really trippy and cool looking. And then they land, well, not land. They crash, and Ant-Man grabs his daughter. He turns big so that he can soften the blow, and then
mm-hmm.
the Wasp catches her dad and lands. And yeah, then they're sorry,
Yeah,
one sec. Gotta clear my throat.
yeah. And then they're separated, right? So Scott and
Yeah,
Cassie are together, and then Hope, Janet, and Hank are all together. Um, so we start our separate adventures, where you have Cassie and Scott who kind of get found by some locals and get taken, and then we get introduced to a nice variety of characters.
yeah.
And they drink this guy's juice, and they like they can
Drink
understand
the
everyone.
go, drink that go,
Yeah,
drink that go.
and the goo guy is pretty funny.
Yeah,
Um,
it was funny the first time.
yeah, and you have like
That joke. There is this really good joke where he says like, "Oh, he has 7 holes," and then like there was a big pause because then it turned out he was like thinking like, "Oh yeah, that's right." I was
yeah,
like, that was actually a pretty good joke. It was good timing and everything like that. There's a guy who can read minds. There's like this trippy dude with like a weird head that can shoot lasers. There's this like warrior chick who's awesome and badass.
yeah,
Like it's just fun little cast of characters, kind of Guardians of the Galaxy esque. They
yeah,
live in these really cool houses, by the way. I wanted to bring this up because I just thought those houses were really cool looking.
yeah.
But they live in like these flying houses that are also alive. They're like machine houses that are sentient. Because I think the idea in the quantum realm is like well, everything, literally everything is alive. Like I think that's what they were trying to go for. Even
Right.
like this later the ship with that Hang has to fly, which is really funny. But so like they're like, oh, who are you? You're from above. Like, oh, Janet. It's the thing is like again like they're bringing up her name. Obviously, she knows everyone knows her, but she just again refuses to tell what's going on. This is really annoying and really poorly written. It's the acting is like you can tell like she doesn't know what to do with the fact like it's just she doesn't want to tell these kids anything. Very foolish.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just so like weird. It's like obviously like the movie is trying to build suspense, but like the reason it doesn't make like there's not a
Any
good
sense?
reason
Yeah,
for it.
there
Like
would be no reason, yeah, for her to withhold at that point. Like to sit them down in the dirt after they dodge a scanning ship. There's literally a ship flying around scanning for them, right?
yeah.
And they don't like they duck and they like what's going on? I'll tell you fucking later. Fuck you. And she just walks away for like no reason. Like no, it's they could just sit down in the dirt in that moment and talk about Kang and stuff like that, and they don't do
Right.
it. And then they go to a space bar. So there's two plot lines going on right now. There's Scott and Cassie who went to that village of like fun little characters, and then there is the rest of the Pym family, the Wasp and Hank and Janet.
Mm-hmm.
And they go to like this space, like this quantum realm bar, which is kind of like the cantina in Star Wars. To be honest, a little bit more upscale, but like there's weird, trippy sci-fi music playing. Everyone's drinking weird drinks. There's a bunch of weird aliens looking around. That's pretty cool. And then they order shots of goo so they can the goo, by the way, makes it so they can like hear, like understand like the quantum language and stuff like that. So it's
Yeah.
like really easy plot device. It solves everything right away. Um, and so they sit down at this table. Janet keeps asking for this Bill Murray's character. I don't know what this guy's name is. I
I don't
forgot
remember
right
his
away.
name. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. It all matters with Bill Murray. Um, just like who's in Thor Ragnarok? Fucking that guy.
Oh,
He
the Master,
yeah,
Grandmaster.
Jeff Goldblum. That was it. Yep.
Yeah.
Jeff Goldblum. So it's kind of like that for Bill Murray. So they go in the bar, and then Bill Murray shows up with like ship, and they start talking and talking, and it turns out very quickly that he like betrayed them and her and Janet, and like the guards are walking in, and he does like a cool thing where like he's like, "Oh, let me finish speaking to her, not yet." And then he's like trying to convince her to like just like surrender, like he's really trying. And then they start a fight, and there's some cool sci-fi shooting stuff, and those guys in the blue uniforms make some cool noises when they die. It's like little
Yeah.
video game characters. It's really funny actually. And then they jump onto the ship, and then the controls for the ship is actually really funny. Hank's got there's like these fleshy tubes you gotta push in and push out of, and it's like really weird looking and gross. Kind of like those like gel sleeves, that you used to have as a kid that you could rotate in and out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly like that. Yeah. And then they fly off, and then she decides to tell them about Kang.
Yeah. She's like, oh yeah. By the way, let me just tell you everything now that
Yeah.
we're about to meet him.
So, but then we go back to Scott and Casey. They're ambushed by the Hunter biometric thingamajig. Um, it's Modoc. Modoc was in this movie, and I actually thought it was really cool looking and trippy and weird and funny and cute. I'm not sure how you felt about the whole Modoc situation. Like, I actually like that they used his whole head and face and stuff. I thought that
Yeah.
was pretty
I
cool.
I like that.
Yeah, like they were actually willing to do it. Like at first I thought, oh, he's just gonna be a robot. That's so stupid. But then he pulls back the helmet. You're like, what the fuck? Everyone's just like, holy shit. I'm podcasting. You can text me if you need something. Um, so it's sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second.
No, it's all good. Yeah. So
So
Modoc was hunting Cassie and Scott, and he picks them up and takes them to Kang pretty much. And yeah, then he's like, "Hey, I'm Modoc. Yes, get it? Acronyms, fun." And it's not the Modoc quote unquote from comics. It shares some qualities, but it's Darren Cross, who was Yellow Jacket in the first Ant-Man, who gets turned into Modoc by Kang in the quantum realm, and as such serves Kang. So
yep.
he has a couple different modes. I mean, one, he has a full like mask and everything, and then he can pull up the mask and he looks like Modoc more or less. I don't know. I don't think he's bad. I think he's fine. I think some of the dialogue about him being a dick that comes later is kind of weird.
Yeah, I think they were trying to be funny.
Yeah.
That's always a huge problem in Marvel movies is where they sneak these like jokes into moments that actually should be serious.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. You said like when we saw the movie that in the comics, Modoc is just kind of an idiot. That's like kind of his like thing, right? So it's yeah, yeah. Anyway, but so Modoc captures them. They get into these cells. Like Modoc's gloating, talking about how fucking awesome he is, and then King shows up, but in his full armor, which he looks really cool. And yeah, he just basically tortures Cassie, and then gets Scott to go jump into like this warp drive. So Janet put one of those discs things, like the disc, the Ant-Man discs with the pin particles. They can make things shrink or get bigger or smaller.
Yeah.
And she put it into the core of Kang's ship after she was exposed to Kang's mind. She saw him being like, a conqueror and slaughtering things and being awesome and badass and stuff like that, and like screaming. So Kang gets in his ship. He's about to take off, and then Janet steals the the ship's warp core thing. Like it's like a multi-dimensional core or something like that. Like he can travel through dimensions. He can travel anywhere in space, anywhere in time. Like it's this thing.
Yeah.
He's really OP. And using that magic, the core is destroyed, and he once again becomes stuck in the quantum realm. Janet learns that he was banished there because of just how he is, slaughtering people, and he's stuck there now, for now. Like after she leaves eventually, and so they take Scott and Casey, and also for some reason the Pym family, Hank and Janet, and with the Wasp are flying over there too, to the exact same spot at the exact same time. Very convenient. Kind of a weak plot point, but whatever. They get there, and they probably the best sequence I think in the whole movie. When there's multiple of them. It was a little cringe towards the end, but
well, I think like.
So, just to finish this, so there's the multi-dimensional core, and they got to, the Wasp and Ant-Man have to shrink down super small in the quantum realm already to get to this core, and apparently they go into some sort of theoretical possibility where every decision, his own decisions are causing clones of him to appear, and those clones they make their own decisions, and then more of them appear, and it's cool looking. So please continue now with that.
Yeah.
Now that the viewers are informed.
Sorry, I was reading something. Did you talk about when Kang was introduced and fucking with Scott?
Yeah. I mean, he tortured them, and then they threw. I'm talking about how when they got to the core, they're inside the core now.
Yeah.
And the clones started appearing and stuff like that, the multiple different copies of them and stuff.
Yeah, it's essentially the mini worlds theory, except everything's happening in one place, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Do you think that was the best sequence in the whole movie? Do you think kind of like the grayscale sequence from the Thor: Love and Thunder?
Not really. I thought it was okay. I think the CGI in that scene was pretty rough. And I also think that I don't know, it seemed kind of pointless, I guess. But obviously it's another thing he just has to overcome so he can, and then I like the idea thematically that once Cassie kind of calls out, everybody's on board, no matter how different all these different possibilities of Ant-Man are, all of them still have the same goal of saving Cassie, right? So yeah. I like that a lot thematically. And then yeah, they're able to shrink down the core, and then Kang just gets weird for some reason. He's like, yes, we had an arrangement, and I'm a man of my word. I was totally going to take Janet home until she sabotages the core and everything, but now, nope, Cassie's not going with you. If he would have just given over Cassie, I don't even think there would have been a fight.
Here's the thing. They, what happened? What happened in that sequence? I'm trying to remember. They get the core, they fall on the ground, right? Kang shows up, and it's the four of them: the Hank, Janet, and the Wasp and Ant-Man now.
Yeah.
Kang needs a core, and he just grabs it, right? That's what he does.
He pretty much grabs it. He they try to fight him. He just kind of brushes them off. And then he takes Janet.
Yeah. And Janet was trying to tell Scott not to give him the core and stuff like that, and
Yeah, but he was still gonna do it, and then Kang he's like Kang, we had a deal, hey, I'll give you the core, give me Cassie, and he's like, nah, Cassie will be fine without you. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Are you what?
Yeah. A little strange.
But yeah, I mean, maybe it's just because it's Kang, all he needed was them to use the Pym particles to shrink the core. Other than that, he was chilling,
Yep.
But it's still weird. Like he could have left at any time after at that point and just like never did.
Yep.
And like I get it, like he wants to take his army and everything he built with him, but like he could always get more armies and always like he's Kang the Conqueror, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he was also trying to assert that like what Janet saw wasn't like necessarily him,
Yeah.
but
Well, I
like
thought like, well, I think eventually what they might do is like, oh, that was supposed to be him slaughtering his clones, like, or himself. Like, I thought that was the idea, like, is that he fights in like an infinite war with himself or something like that. But I don't know. Like, I don't know what they're going for in this story. Um,
so I think what it is, and not to like sidetrack or anything from the story, but I think what it is like, you know, we had he who remains in Loki, right?
yeah.
And his whole purpose was, well, my variants get out of hand and all end up going crazy pretty much, and we've all seen the end, right? Like, and once you've seen the end, like you do weird shit like to try to whatever. And
Yeah.
he decided, well, the only way to really fix this is to have one timeline, and I'll create the time variance authority, and they'll go and stop any branching timelines. Well, now he's dead, and the timelines are branching, and each version of him will try to do whatever they can to also maintain the status quo or to maintain order, right? Like this Kang in the quantum realm, I believe he believes if I don't go destroy all these random worlds and timelines, they will continue to, you know, converge. After, you know, they're called incursions, right? Where
Yeah.
realities collide, and those things will continue to happen unless he stops those things. So he, you know, in his own mind, he thinks he's doing something good, right? He thinks he's stopping incursions, and yes, he has to kill millions and billions of people to do that, but
Mm.
to him it's like it's worth it to preserve other timelines, right? So every version of Kang, I believe, is trying to preserve the timeline or timelines, and this is just kind of how it goes. And for him, it's going and conquering different worlds and different timelines and ultimately destroying a bunch of planets in the process.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So then,
So yeah, they steal the core. They're gonna use Kang's gonna use the core to like travel back into the above realm with his big new fancy army and stuff like that. Like again, like this cool little like reality punk army almost. Kind of like it's kind of weird sci-fi punk sort of vibe to him. And then like they hijack. He's sitting out a hologram. Cassie gets away from the guards that are guarding her, and she gets to the badass warrior chick who is now in prison after Kang raided and after MODOK raided their settlement. Cassie's like, oh, I don't know what to do. And she's like, okay, we need to go this, and this, and do that. And she's like, Cassie's like, great, I'll follow you. And then they speed off. And then they're rescued by when do the ants come in? I forget. Like when are they
oh,
rescued
that's
by?
way well.
So the Kang beats the shit out of them, right, and shoots down their ship.
Yeah,
And no, MODOK shoots his ship.
yeah. MODOK shoots down Hank's ship.
Probably, I think that's probably the best MODOK interaction in the movie is the interaction those two have. I think, like MODOK seems kind of cruel and crazy and stuff like that. Like with the chains, I think the chains are super fucking cool.
Yeah,
I don't know. I just really like this MODOK in this movie. Even though I don't know anything about the comic book MODOK, so I don't know like anything at all about MODOK to be honest. I just really found him as an interesting character, and I'm just glad they went with the whole head.
yeah.
Yeah. So they rescue. Hank crashes his ship. Janet gets kidnapped, and then they're rescued by a bunch of sci-fi ants who I guess accidentally slipped through a wormhole when they were falling through when they were falling through the portal into the quantum realm after Cassie's signal was stolen by MODOK. These ants apparently like lived 100 million lifetimes or whatever, like in like the span of like 15 seconds. And they became like a super powerful sci-fi civilization, like Type 2 civilization, I think he said, which means you're able to harness the power of your own sun to do whatever you want. It's a Kardashian on the scale thing. Look it up. It's really fun stuff to think about.
Yeah.
But these ants rescue them. They fix the ship, and they're like, all right, we got a plan. We got to go beat Kang. So they go off to go fight Kang, and then it cuts back. Kang is like giving out this, like, says some stuff to Janet. Janet's like, "Oh, you're a conqueror, piece of shit. Fuck you." And Kang's like, "Fuck you, bitch. I'm gonna go fucking do whatever I want because I'm fucking Kang."
Yeah.
Then he puts core in. He puts the ball in the core. The core starts spinning up. He starts talking to his army with the hologram projection and like projecting it all around the quantum realm. And then his signal is hijacked by Cassie and the warrior chick. And Cassie's like, "All right," gives like a really not motivational speech to Hunter Storm.
Rebellion.
Yeah, rebellion. Like, oh, stand up and fight. Sometimes it feels hopeless, but you need to have hope when you are hopeless.
Yeah.
Thanks. So just do the opposite, guys. And then they break out the rest of the soldiers in the underground jail and they start fighting. Start the rebellion. And the city explodes into fighting and stuff like that. Ant-Man like supersizes up to like be huge, like bigger than I think he's ever been. And then he starts, like, "Kang, we had a deal. Your word is your bond." Like, I have no idea what the fuck he was saying there. Like, it was so weird. And then like he picks up a building, and he starts throwing it at Kang, but then all like these ships fly off to start shooting him. And he's like, "There's too many." And then save the day. All the flight again.
Gandalf shows up on first light on the
exactly
day,
except that Gandalf is a giant flying house spaceship sentient thing.
Yeah.
So that was pretty. I really like those fucking houses with like the arm cannons and like their jet boosters and stuff, and how they turn into like, I don't know. I just really love that design, and like there's people in the windows like shooting out rifles and stuff. So this is cool looking.
Yeah.
So like a bunch of other sci-fi ships show up to fight the bad guy sci-fi ships, and like it turns into kind of like a Star Wars battle almost. And Ant-Man's like everyone's fighting and doing cool things and shit. Ant-Man stops. Kang is trying to teleport like a super base away into the above realm, and then he gets stopped by Ant-Man, who they launch him like cannonball style. The Wasp is carrying him, and then he supersizes up at the last second, collides in the building, and fucks everything up, and Kang can't teleport anymore. And Janet takes the ball, right? Is that what happens, or is that after? I can't remember if she steals the ball or does something so he can't teleport anymore.
No, he just decides, it's time to go put an end to this, pretty much. Because Janet's still under surveillance or whatever. Yeah. But they obviously she's thinking about escaping or whatever.
Yeah.
So Kang goes out, starts
he puts on his blue face.
Yeah, starts murdering everybody in sight.
Yeah, using his cool lasers. And I just gotta say, Kang, he looks cool as hell. Like, the actor is playing some really weird, intense character. Obviously with a lot of facets from that scene we got post credits, which is actually a really, really cool scene. Personally, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan Majors does a great job, and he really brings a lot of bravado and
power. He's very powerful in how he presents himself. Very confident.
Yeah,
but also very controlled.
Shakespearean in some ways.
Yeah, very dramatic. I think as dramatic, but also in a serious way. He's always looking people dead in the eye. He's always standing close to them. He always has a kind of a powerful stance and stuff like that. It's just good, great shit, dude. Yeah. So hopefully it keeps being good as it when you go longer and longer and whatever this is. So he goes down, he starts shooting people using these lasers to instantly disintegrate. He blows up that dude with the weird laser head. We're supposed to feel sad even though we only had him on screen for 6 minutes.
He just explodes his head pretty much.
He just gets one shot, Black Bolt. It's just oh yeah.
Poor Black Bolt.
Poor Black Bolt.
Yeah. Kang starts fucking shit up, and then ants come to save the day.
And then these sci-fi super ants. So I don't know if there's any comic book precedent for those ants. Are they there? Is that a super race that has their own 36 comic book run or something like that?
The ants are always side characters. I mean, they're never the main characters. So even in this, they're the side characters. But
yeah, so the ants show up with their super advanced civilization and they overwhelm Kang immediately, which kind of makes Kang look like a bitch. Not gonna be honest. He gets beat up by all these ants.
Yeah.
Cassie beats up MODOK. And then MODOK slams in. They have this really cringe 2 seconds of dialogue where Cassie's MODOK's I can't stop being what I am. I'm a dick. And Cassie's well, maybe you should stop being a dick. And
Yeah,
MODOK,
and
and
then he's
then
like, "Oh, good idea. Now I'll go
yeah,
stop Kang from defending himself against the ants."
yes, yeah. He says, "I am not a dick," and then he crashes into Kang's shield and blows himself up, basically. And
Yeah.
the ants overwhelm Kang and drag him away, and they're like, clawing at him with like their laser jaws or whatever. The fuck, it was all really cool looking.
Yeah, and he's like, "Ah, I died in Avenger."
Yeah, pretty much. So then they gather around MODOK. He's like dying, and then they're like, "You're my brother, Scott." And Scott was like, "What?" And then like he's like touching his face, really awkward.
Yeah.
He's like, "At least I died." And then MODOK's like, "At least I died an Avenger, right, Scott? You can make me." Because like the idea is like Ant-Man really can't make people an Avenger. He's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, you are an Avenger." Like he like again, like I don't know, Paul Rudd, really good.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
does like this funny little hand gesture when he says, "Okay, you are an Avenger." He's like, "All right, now you're an Avenger."
yeah.
And
It's
then
like he's knighting him.
I don't think MODOK's dead, to be 100% honest with you, because that little heart monitor on his chest was still bleeping.
It went
Uh,
red though. It was green before.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I was mistaken.
Yeah.
So then they go back up to the tower to get the core and go home.
Yeah, because
And
Janet at that point had escaped and taken the core and programmed it to send him home.
yep,
Um,
and at the very last minute, of course, naturally, because that's how these movies go, Kang shows up and he starts beating the crap out of Ant-Man, and Ant-Man starts beating the crap out of him, and then Kang's like, "All right, fuck this, I'm going for the portal." And then Wasp shoots him through the portal and steps out, and they start beating. They start wailing on Kang, and then they use their the large and small Pym particle discs, which like enlarge or shrink something. They throw a bunch of them into the core again. They throw Kang on top of that, and I don't know if it kills him.
like sucks him into it.
Yeah, I don't think it killed him, to be 100% honest with you. I think he's like stuck in probably in that room where there's like infinite more Kangs and then like an infinite amount of those guys pour out, which would be pretty awesome. But we'll see. We'll save that for later.
Yeah, we don't really know, but it's like obviously the other kings believe he's dead as well.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And
Because
they
you
made
seal
it
the way.
seem like
So just to finish off, the movie, and then Paul Rudd and Ant Man. It's basically like a rehash of the opening sequence. Paul Rudd's doing a little over dialogue. We're talking about if Kang was talking about he needs to be out there to beat someone, then did I just doom the universe? He's like looking around his people. Did I just kill? Oh wait,
yeah,
why am I thinking about that? That's dumb. And then he goes back on this dumb little happy walk, and he doesn't think about Kang
yeah, he
anymore.
started having this mental break or whatever.
Yeah,
Because apparently Kang said like once Kang gets out, he's gonna stop people
himself. Yeah,
pretty much himself from destroying worlds and stuff. But I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of like this is a recurring kind of theme for Scott in this movie is like, you know, he's famous and he's an Avenger and all this stuff, but he's not doing anything anymore, right? Like he like his daughter makes it pretty clear, like, oh yeah, I love you, Dad, but like you don't give a shit anymore. You're not helping people
yeah,
anymore. You're not the one actively trying to help people or save the world. You're just trying to profit off of what you already did,
yeah.
which is kind of like a weird theme, I guess. But yeah, then like they throw a party at the end. He meets up with Cassie and everyone else, and they're like, "Happy birthday!" And she's like, "It's not my birthday." He's like, "Yeah, well, I missed a lot of them, so this is their birthday now."
Yeah.
You better like it.
He gave him like 10 cards or something like that.
Yeah.
So it was really cute, and then they cuts to commercial. And what was okay? So there's two end credit scenes. What was the first? I can't remember
So
the
the
first one.
first one was like pretty much like the Council of Kangs.
That's right, the Kang. Okay, now I remember the scenes.
And
Okay,
like
that was a really cool
yeah,
one.
they're like, well, the one we exiled is gone. Let's call everybody in for some reason. That isn't explained at all, but pretty much it's there to show the audience. Just because he's gone doesn't mean anything. There are an infinite number of Kangs. There's an infinite number of possibilities. And this is the thing they've been trying to get across for a while now is like anything is possible because of the multiverse, because of time travel, because of whatever. Anything is possible. So don't think just because some things happen that it means anything, really. Like anything can happen at any time. Right? That I think that's really what they're trying to get across. And this is like what we kind of talked about before, where I had a conversation with a friend who was like really opposed to this whole thing, to multiverse and everything, because she didn't like the idea that He Who Remains and Kang are the same actor and same person but completely different.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, they're different, but they're also kind of the same. So, and that's what the army, like this Council of Kings, is also like. They're not all altruistic, the best version. Like they're the smartest version of that person in every world, and that they become king.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And then the second post-credit scene is
like. Well, I just want to say on the Council of Kings credit scene, because there was some really intense acting in it too. Like, it cut out, like, in order for him to do all those shots, basically what you do is you stand alone in a room and you do you cut like 800 or 900 different shots. And some of them are really quite intense. Like, he was beating on his chest almost like a wild animal because all the other Kangs were getting together. And, I guess, again, we don't really know too much about Kang, but it's obvious from that scene that some of them are a little out there, like, or they don't really have personalities anymore. I don't know. Did you extrapolate a little bit on that? Like, what those other Kangs are like? Are there some of them out there that are just fucking, like, just bonkers beyond belief?
I mean,
how does it, well, you just said anything's possible, I guess, so that, no, moot point.
I mean, even in comics, like, it's hard in comics, and, they're not going to write a million versions of the same character and give them all unique personalities. Like, it's just too much. So, like, you get your main one, which is, like, you understand this is our version of this character, and this is who they are, and you kind of run off of that. And then sometimes there'll be another one here or there. Like, I mean, Spider-Man has the most that are, like, unique. But, like, Reed Richards has, like, Reed Richards and The Maker, right? Like, he has, like, 2 actual versions that people care about. Like, and same like Doctor Doom. Like, nobody gives a shit about all these other universes of Doctor Doom. They care about 616 Doctor Doom, like the main Marvel Universe Doctor Doom, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, if you don't have an established singularity of anything, it's hard to ever talk about something without just like, well, what about this version and this version and this version? Like, Kang doesn't, like, when I've read Kang comics, I'm reading the main storyline Kang, right? But what they allow you to do with movies is, like, say, well, yeah, that one maybe is dead, but there will be another.
Yeah. So,
but which can be troublesome too, because then it's like, well, you can beat these big massive villains, but what's to stop another one just from showing up of that same guy, right?
Yeah.
So, like, there are issues with it, like, inherently, but that just doesn't happen. They're not going to send an army of Kangs, right? Like,
they can't do that.
I mean, they could.
So that's what I was.
Because
that's what I was thinking that they're trying to set up with, like, that sequence of them summoning a bunch of Kangs and stuff like that. Like, one was kneeling, like, when they were down on that field, like they were fighting with each other already. It was really crazy. I thought that was one of the cool scenes. It's not even part of the movie, to be honest. Like, I don't know. I just thought it was really cool. Then again, like, some of them are really intense, like beating their chest and, like, screaming like apes and stuff like that at each other like that. And, man, that guy must have done a lot. He must have done a lot of cuts for that. So I'm gonna say, because there are a lot of, like, cuts of him, like, in the background. It was hard to keep track of them all.
right.
And then we get the next post-credit scene, which is all that we went after when I really had to pee, and I was, like, trying to focus really hard. And I was like, okay, this is worth it then, at least.
Yeah.
But, man, if you didn't see Loki, you would have had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, and it's essentially just like a teaser. Or, honestly, it's probably I'm not gonna say probably. It is legitimately a scene from season 2 of Loki.
Yeah.
Like, that's just what it is. Him and Mobius are in the 1930s watching either a presentation or something, like a science presentation, and it's one of Kang's early variants, right? So early on, probably before he gets to the point that all Kangs get to eventually, which is explained at the end of season 1 of Loki. So if you haven't watched it, you really should.
Yeah, I may go back and rewatch Loki now. Like, I really enjoyed Loki, so I don't mind rewatching it for that effect.
And a lot of people, like, I remember when we talked about it, like, you even said, like, the ending was weird for you, right? Like,
yeah,
it didn't seem to make a lot of sense in the scope.
Well,
of the show,
I thought it was kind of anticlimactic. I didn't like how we got the shot of this cool castle on the hill, like magical castle, and, like, this magical time space dimension, and then, like, they're instantly inside the castle, and then that's about it. Like, I thought that was kind of weak, and the castle really falls apart.
And at the time too, when we talked about it, I remember saying, like, the biggest problem is gonna be that people aren't necessarily going to understand the scene or the significance of those scenes until, like, they need to, right? Like, until now, essentially, right? Where all these things, all these branching realities, all this multiverse stuff is possible and exists because of Loki.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is. And I think this movie just kind of serves as a jumping off point, because we know Kang Dynasty is gonna be a thing in Avengers movie, right? Like, we know we're gonna see Kang again. This isn't the end for him. And I honestly think if it wasn't announced that there was gonna be a Kang Dynasty movie, people would be complaining that they wasted Kang in this movie. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and too, like, I feel like sometimes they just portrayed this version of Kang, who was supposed to be the ultimate one, as kind of weak. I don't know, like, he kind of got beat up a lot, but I guess also I think the point they're trying to stress is that his special suit that he was in got all blown up by the ants, so like he became a little bit weaker, and then Ant-Man was able to, like, clock him across the face a couple times, but yeah, and I don't know, what do you think? 10 out of 10? Not a 10 out of 10, but I think definitely like a 7.5, maybe an 8. Like, it was pretty good.
Yeah, I'm more on like the 6 to 7 scale.
Mm.
I think it was a fine movie. It was enjoyable, but to me, it's nothing special. Aside, like from visually, it looked great, and the acting was very good. I mean, Michael Douglas does a fantastic job as Hank Pym still, and I really like him, honestly. Paul Rudd is charming and funny and not so good looking that it's like off-putting.
Yeah, like he just fits really well, and he's really able to carry a lot of his lines. Again, something we talked about in the beginning of the podcast is like there's unfortunately this movie does suffer from some weaker dialogue writing.
Yeah,
it
honestly,
kind of falls flat, and
like it's a weird comparison, but to me, this movie is similar to Black Adam. Like,
yeah,
like action is great. The movie, like, overall looks pretty good. I think this movie looks much better, like, aesthetically and visually than Black Adam. And even a lot of, I think some of the dialogue and story points are better than Black Adam, but not overly better, not like to an extreme, like slightly better parts of the movie. But it's not that different. Like, it's fun. It's a lot of action. It looks cool. But the dialogue and the story could use some help.
Yeah, for sure. Specifically, the dialogue is just sometimes is really weak and didn't carry through very well. But aside from that, like,
and the pacing's a little weird too. It always sounds really pretentious when you talk about things like pacing, but and tone and whatever.
Pacing is important, like you gotta really build some things up in a movie before you really start that run. Like, the movie turns basically into a full sprint as soon as they get to the quantum realm, which is why I think I appreciated how it started kind of slow, like really, really slow. And then just really literally like it sucks you in when he does that portal.
Yeah.
And then the action starts right away, like where he's running over the top of that falling ant farm that's falling through space and time and shit.
Yeah. And honestly, the effects are still really good. And
trippy looking, kind of like the first Doctor Strange.
Yeah, and kind of like the second Guardians. Like the second Guardians had some weird trippy effects, like when they were like just fast traveling or whatever. Like the faces got weird and shit.
Yeah, he just warped. Hey, we're only supposed to warp 3 times for health and safety. You just sent us to warp 32 times. Like, they start screaming, and like their faces start like, yeah, it is pretty funny. And like it cuts back to him a few times, and then just go oh man, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is gonna be good. I feel like. I hope so.
Hopefully, yeah. They also released a poster for the Marvels today, and it looks like it got pushed back till November. And so November 10th, I think, is the release date for that movie now. So yeah, no.
Good for them. Maybe, I don't know. like those suits in Black Panther 2 were looking real weird, man. I don't know how else to put that. Like it really looked kind of anime. But I don't know if that's how it looks in the comics.
Which suits?
From Black Panther 2, that was Ironheart, right? She's
that suit looked kind of weird. Yeah,
she's one of the Marvels, right? Isn't that how that worked? Isn't that who she is? Or
no?
Oh. Okay.
The Marvels will be Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, and Spectrum.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So,
That'll be a good one, hopefully.
Yeah. And who knows about like if Wonder Man or anyone else will show up in that, but
Yep.
yeah, I mean overall like Quantumania wasn't bad. It wasn't anything to me that was like special. It wasn't like a movie I'm gonna watch over and over and over again or anything. But it does, it does achieve what it's trying to. It introduces Kang. It shows you how powerful he is or could be, and maybe some of the problem with it is they do show you his power, right? I mean, they do show you in large parts his power, especially when like
he does that. He does that scream, and like the power just radiates off him and explodes and stuff, and then like he starts walking forward like it's normal and stuff like that. Like,
but also like when he's like torturing like Scott and Cat, like not really torturing, but like
why didn't he use that? Why didn't he use that telekinesis at all?
That's what I'm saying, man. Like, what? Like,
is he telekinetic? Is that one of his powers, or I don't know?
Well, it's a technology power, right? Like he uses technology to create those kind of abilities. So it's not like he's not like an X-Men like with those powers, like, but he has the technology to give himself those powers, right? So it's like part of it, his suit has those powers.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, like it's weird. Like he didn't really use that again very much. I mean, he used it to stop Janet when she was running away.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, dude, you got ants coming at you. Like, use your fucking telekinesis shit, Like,
yep.
But it also seemed like instead of showing, like, if they had a cool sequence where like they showed him conquering worlds with the Avengers on him and like killing them, I feel like that's more powerful than him saying like, oh, I've killed a bunch of Avengers, like, because, as, people who've read comics will know like, oh yeah, that's true. But like people who haven't will be like, is he like just lying to like make himself seem more powerful? Like if he could really kill Avengers, why not just kill Scott? Like, you know what I mean? Like he's so powerful. Like, is it just he has this hubris where he's like finds everyone else so insignificant he doesn't bother to kill them, or like what? Because like, bro, you got your core. You could have just killed Scott and Hank and Hope and then taken Janet. But like, I get it. Obviously, as movie makers, you can't do that, right? Yeah. I mean,
yeah. Plot armor. That's just what it is, and that's unfortunate. That's how they do it.
But as a writer, you can explain it to your audience better, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like I feel like sometimes in the movie, it's like they try to tell you things without showing you, which can be a mistake. But no, the movie was still good. Like it's still enjoyable. Like it's still a fun movie. Anybody who's like, has trepidation about seeing it because of reviews or bullshit, like just go watch it and enjoy it for yourself. And if you don't enjoy it, that's fine too. If you end up with a stinky hobo who takes his shoes off and tries to interrupt your conversations because he thinks he's clever sitting next to you, that's whatever too. Because that guy was fucking weird.
Yeah.
Dude, I understood what he was trying to do, but it was annoying as fuck.
Like that dude next to us in the theater?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, okay, first of all, this dude brought in like his hydro flask, which is annoying as fuck. Like,
Yeah, he's clanging around in there.
But, whatever. People do their own things. Then, like, he just has his shoes off the whole fucking movie.
Yeah.
Like, and then, like, even before the movie, like, when we were talking, he would, like, try to, like, kind of butt into our conversation a little bit.
Like, just interject, or he would just say something random and then look over at us, and then I would go, yeah, haha.
Yeah. And then after we were talking, and Daniel had said something about Spider-Man, right? And I was like, yeah, people still remember Spider-Man, they just don't remember Peter Parker. And this guy's like, remember who? And I'm like, Spider-Man. He's like, who are we talking about? And I'm like, dude, I get what you're trying to do. Like, I get it. Like, oh, you're trying to pretend like you forgot about Spider-Man. Shut the fuck up, dude. Nobody's fucking talking to you.
Yeah, like it really was weird how he was like I wouldn't put it that great, but he was really strange how he was just butting into our conversation.
Yeah,
Like I know for a
like
fact, it's funny. Like he seemed like one of those guys who's trying to act high in public, and I know for a fact I was high as fuck, way higher than that guy was.
this
So like,
no, this guy
he
just
said,
he's a classic nerd. Like he's not like like I get it. We're all nerds, right? But like this
yeah,
guy had no like social awareness. Like
zero.
like
Yeah,
he thought he got me. Like
yeah,
because I saw him like laughing when I said Spider-Man. I'm like, bro, like I get it. I get you're trying to make a joke. It's not funny. Like I'm not talking to you. You know,
yeah,
like you can have your laugh. Like you just have no social awareness. Like most of the time, people aren't just trying to have conversations with strangers. Like I don't know, but you know,
yeah.
whatever. Like
Like,
that's your thing, I
or
guess.
he couldn't like have a conversation with his own fucking girlfriend.
Right.
So it
He's sitting
was
next
more
to
like
his girlfriend,
girlfriend or someone. I don't fucking know.
and
He
he's
was there
looking
with the
at us the
girl.
whole time.
Time exactly. I didn't understand that at all.
I'm like, bro, you got a girlfriend right there. Like, all right, but yeah, it was. I mean, it's always fun though. Like, just go out to movies with your friends or whatever. But it's like I don't know.
Yep.
It's always the other people that are like it makes things
Weird.
uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, or they're on like bad, awkward dates that aren't going well because you
Well,
show up
it,
and you take off your shoes in front of your date without telling her, and you have your hydro flask banging around. You didn't fucking buy her a drink because you couldn't afford it, and you were also high as fuck. And didn't even offer to get her high before you got in there. And
yeah.
so you don't want to talk to this girl who's mad at you, and so you're gonna try and talk to these people who obviously don't want to fucking talk to you because we're here as a trio. Talk to ourselves.
And then the people
Yeah.
sitting in the row in front of us like broke the chairs.
No, they didn't break them. Those things go back. I was surprised how far, dude. I gotta be honest. Like, I was surprised how far back my freaking chair went. Like, it was really like, wow.
Hey,
Like, dude, this thing goes.
I'm pretty sure they broke them because they were like trying to fling them up and shit. I don't know. They were fucking around. It was really annoying though.
Yeah. Thankfully, this one there was no like when we saw Black Panther, people were going like, like people go crazy and shit like
Oh
that.
yeah. Yeah.
But thankfully for this one, most people are usually pretty calm, aside from like laughs, because again, like it was a bit of a comedy sci-fi movie, so
Yeah.
very entertaining.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're either gonna get people who appreciate the the homages to things like Star Wars and Dune and other things, or you're gonna get people that say like, oh, they're just stealing other people's ideas and it's stupid or something. Whatever. Go watch the movie, decide for yourself, enjoy it or don't enjoy it. We don't care, but we thought we'd give you our thoughts, and I hope you enjoyed our podcast.
Yep.
Yeah. Follow, like, subscribe, press buttons, be our friends. Okay, don't be our friends. We don't need friends.
Yeah, I don't need friends. I'm not in the market for a friend right now.
Yeah,
I'm good.
we don't have friends really, but we also don't want them. So,
Yep.
yeah, rate, review, press all those good buttons, and have a good night. Bye, everyone.
Give me